Welcome to this video in the Do More with Snow series, covering how you can avoid unforeseen compliance risk in your remote access application usage. My name is Jelle Wijndelts. I am Director of Consulting Services in EMEA. I'm joined by Kelly Woods, one of our senior licensing consultants at Snow UK. So can you tell me, in the current new normal, a lot of customers have moved to remote working for their employees, which opens up the potential of software usage, or the software usage trap as it's called. Can you explain a little bit more on what that means?
Yeah, of course, Jelle. So the potential usage trap has been an issue for many years, but it's recently that people are really discovering it and what it means. Most commonly it's seen where you have multiple users accessing desktop applications remotely from a server. And the risk around it is based around the fact that the majority of vendors generally have a rule that means that the way in which you would license it is not exactly how you would expect through traditional, I've used that, I need a license. In fact, it's more based around potential usage. So instead of looking at how many users have accessed something, they will look at what that potential access is. And what you'll find is if you haven't actually restricted the access to your users or the devices that your users are actually accessing, then you'll find that you may actually be liable to for licensing potentially all of the users within your actual entire environment, and this is the real risk that we see.
Can you give me an example of a customer?
Yeah, so we had a customer fairly recently, actually, who they had Microsoft Office installed on a server, and they had many of their employees accessing this remotely. And this was absolutely fine. They had an enterprise agreement that allowed for this. There were no issues. However, what they then realized was that Microsoft Project was also installed on the same server. And the same users that had access to Office were also able to access Project. Now, although potentially only a handful of their employees actually needed access to Project, unfortunately, because they hadn't restricted that access down, because all of their users and those devices were able to physically access this application from that server, unfortunately, they were liable for purchasing licenses for the entire organization. So the best way for me to really demonstrate how Snow can help with these situations would be for me to share my screen with you now. So the first thing that I would like to draw everybody's attention to is the real key important thing when it comes to trying to deal with this potential risk is, again, as we always say, it's down to visibility. And the best way to achieve that visibility is using a number of these reports that we have in Snow. I'll demonstrate one of these reports for you now. So the first thing you'll notice as I've brought up this report is you'll see this TS-prefix. Now this is really key when it comes to managing your access through terminal services or remote desktop access. And the TS there, it actually stands for terminal services. And what Snow does is it prefixes this against anything that is being accessed remotely, any desktop application that is being accessed remotely from a server, and they will all have this lovely TS prefix. Okay, so by running this applications per computer and user report, I've ran this against the criteria of application like TS- with the wildcard in there. And as you'll see, this now brings up all of the TS- applications within your organization. And you'll see here that you can not only see the application and the manufacturer and whether a license is required, but you'll also be able to see the relevant user and the machine that it's being accessed from. And this is the first clue that you'll get as to who is using which applications within your organization, who actually needs this remote access. Because what you want to establish ultimately is which users actually do you want to grant access, and by knowing that you can know which users you want to restrict access for. Okay, and this report is probably the first step in doing that. Now, one of the other reports I'd like to show you, if we go back here, is a devices-based report. Now you'll see we have two reports on here that are very important. We've got applications per device and devices per remote server. These can both come in really useful. Devices per remote server will actually allow you to see all of the devices that are accessing that remote server, regardless of whether or not they are accessing any of the applications. And this will give you an idea of the numbers and the names of people who just are able to access that server and who have accessed that server. Applications per device is a very similar report, but this will actually show you that from an application level. It will show you the devices that are accessing those applications that are used on remote servers. Okay, so if we run this report, refresh it, there we go. And you'll see, looking at this report, I've not added in any report criteria, I don't need to. You'll see that this brings up a whole array of things, and I'm going to filter, we're just going to filter here on Microsoft just to make life a little bit easier. So you can see here we have a lot of applications showing for Microsoft. You can see that we've got the application name, and we can also see the device or the computer that is actually accessing the server for that application. We can see the last user on the device and the last time it was used, as well as how long it was run for. Now, this is all really useful information to, again, gauge which users, which devices as well, because you can have this on a user or device basis, which device and/or which users do we need to keep this access for. Okay, so we're going to look at this and we'll see that if we certainly let's filter maybe on the runtime, we'll see that this was run for 52 times for 39 minutes a time. We know that anybody accessing an application like that for that length of time, certainly it's not something we want to restrict. Okay, and this is the general mentality that you need to apply when you're looking at this, trying to work out where those restrictions are going to be. Okay, so if we have a look in a bit more detail at, say, this one here, what you'll see here is that we can actually delve deeper into the information that we've got. It's one of the things about Snow. You can always find another layer underneath that's going to give you more information. And if we go, we're able to see the users that have accessed this TS application. So again, just a reminder, if it says TS dash, that means that it's being accessed remotely from a server. Okay, so we can see all of these users. I can see, okay, these guys are accessing it as a part of a bundle. That means that they're accessing Excel as part of Office, that's fine. But we've got somebody here in this example that is using this as a standalone product. It's not part of a bundle. And so this allows me, again, to get a bit more information and a bit more visibility. I might even at this stage choose, if I wanted to look at this in more detail, I might even right click. If I right click, I can then export this list of users, which is going to help me perhaps put those restrictions in place with who is on the list to be allowed to access this application and who is on the list to perhaps not be allowed. We can also see all of the machines as well, all of those machine names. And this is where, again, that level of detail comes from and allows you to achieve that visibility, which is so important to be able to differentiate between those users that you want to restrict and the users that you don't want to restrict. Finally, I'll show you that final report that we briefly looked at earlier. And that's the devices per remote server. refresh that. There we go. Now, if you look at this report, you'll see that this is going to give us the details of anyone who has accessed a remote server. And you'll see they've accessed this remote server, and this is the name of their machine. So this is a much broader view than the other ones, which were focusing in on applications. But although it's a broader view, it's still very useful, because what we can take from this is a list of people that we know still need to be able to access the remote servers because they're accessing them, but they're not necessarily listed as needing to access that application. They've not accessed one of those applications from that server before. And if they haven't, you can generally draw the conclusion that they probably don't need access to that. But we can see that they do need access to potentially to the server because they've accessed it. So there's different ways, whether you restrict something, I guess, at the server level or at the application level. And this will help allow for that, that distinction between which method you may use. And it just gives that much broader insight. And that's what I wanted to demo for this video.
Excellent. Thank you, Kelly. That was great insight. So from that, our recommendations for our customers would really be to make sure that, first of all, you have full visibility of your estate and software usage. Make sure you have Snow clients on your servers. Secondly, start monitoring your TS applications. So use the reports that Kelly has just shown. So thank you, everybody, for watching today. Thank you, Kelly, again, for showing us the application and what is possible. If anybody needs or wants more information on how Snow data can be used, please reach out to your Snow representative, or alternatively send an email to the address shown at the end of the video. Thank you very much.